The xenoarchaeology lab hummed with the soft glow of holographic displays. Addison traced her fingers through the three-dimensional reconstruction of the ancient fortress, her eyes narrowing at the impossible defensive formations. Around her, a dozen alien scholars from across the Galactic Confederation leaned forward, their various appendages, tendrils, and sensory organs focused on the historical simulation. "The mathematics simply don't work," chittered Professor Zeltoth, his crystalline carapace refracting the blue light. 300 defenders against 100,000 attackers. The siege lasted 47 standard rotations. Every tactical algorithm we've run suggests total annihilation within 6 hours. Addison nodded, pulling up another data stream. She was one of the few humans in the prestigious Andromeda Institute, her specialty in pre-spaceflight civilizations making her an oddity among species who had achieved stellar travel millions of years before humanity discovered fire. "The archaeological evidence is irrefutable," she said, manipulating the hologram to show layers of carbon dating and molecular analysis. "The fortress of Thermopylae, the Hot Gates, 300 Spartan warriors and their allies held back the entire Persian Empire at this mountain pass." She paused, letting the magnitude sink in. They knew they would die. They stayed anyway. Benjamin had been mopping the corner of the lab for the past 20 minutes, his movements slow and methodical. The human janitor was a familiar fixture in the Institute's halls, quiet, unassuming, always cleaning while the great minds debated the mysteries of the cosmos. Most of the researchers barely noticed him. "Impossible," hissed Dr. Venzera, her serpentine form coiling tighter. "No species possesses such irrational behavior. Self-preservation is the first law of sentient evolution. To stand when retreat ensures survival violates every biological imperative." "Perhaps the records are corrupted," suggested another scholar, a gaseous being whose translated voice echoed from a containment sphere. "Human mythology often embellishes—" "I held the gate." The words were quiet, barely audible over the hum of equipment. Every being in the room froze. Slowly, they turned toward Benjamin, who had stopped mopping and stood staring at the holographic fortress with an expression that made Addison's breath catch. "Excuse me?" Zeltoth's translator crackled with confusion. Benjamin set down his mop, walking toward the display with a deliberate slowness that commanded attention, despite his maintenance uniform. His weathered face bore scars that Addison had never really noticed before, thin white lines that crisscrossed his jaw and disappeared beneath his collar. "Proxima 7, Benjamin said simply. 12 years ago. The Confederation wasn't fully established in that sector yet. The Krenth swarm attacked the colony, 60,000 human settlers, mostly families. The evacuation ships needed 6 hours to get everyone off-world." Addison felt her heart hammering. Every member of the Confederation knew about Proxima 7. It was taught as a tactical miracle, a legendary last stand where an unknown defense force had held off the insectoid Krenth long enough for a complete civilian evacuation. The identity of the defenders had never been confirmed. The Krenth had glassed the entire defensive position. "The colony had one functioning military gate," Benjamin continued, his voice carrying a weight that seemed to age him decades. "A choke point in the canyon where the landing zones were. 43 of us, security personnel, militia volunteers, 3 off-duty Marines who happened to be visiting family. We had enough ammunition for maybe 2 hours of sustained combat." The lab was absolutely silent. "We held for 8 hours, Benjamin said, his eyes distant. "I watched the last evacuation ship break atmosphere, watched it jump to FTL. Then I watched 37 of my friends die so those families could live." He touched his jaw, tracing one of the scars. "Krenth plasma weapons. I was one of 6 who survived because a Confederation patrol ship arrived just before they overran our position." Zeltoth's translator made a sound like static. "The defenders of Proxima 7 were—" "You held that gate?" "We held the gate," Benjamin corrected quietly. "All of us. because those were our people behind us, and someone had to. He looked at the hologram of Thermopylae. Your algorithms don't account for what humans fight for when retreat isn't an option. It's not irrational. It's the most rational thing in the universe, protecting what matters more than your own life. Addison found herself standing, her academic detachment shattered. She'd studied Proxima 7 in her military history courses. The battle was considered impossible by every tactical standard. She'd written a paper arguing that the records must have overestimated the Krenth numbers. She'd been wrong. The Spartans at Thermopylae weren't anomalies, Benjamin said, picking up his mop again. They weren't myths. They were humans, doing what humans do when the people we love are in danger. We find the gate, the mountain pass, the bridge, the canyon, the door, and we hold it. He met Addison's eyes, and she saw something ancient and unbreakable there. We've been holding gates for our entire history. It's what we do. He resumed mopping, moving back to his corner as if he hadn't just recontextualized humanity's entire psychological profile for the greatest minds in the galaxy. Professor Zeltoth slowly manipulated the hologram, his movements shaky. How many of these gates have humans held? Addison pulled up her personal database, her hands trembling slightly. She began listing them, her voice growing stronger with each name. Thermopylae, the Alamo, Bastonia, Rourke's Drift, the Chozine Reservoir, the Valley of Death, Outpost Harry. She paused. Proxima 7. The list went on. Hundreds of battles across human history where vastly outnumbered forces had held impossible positions against overwhelming odds, not because they could win, but because someone had to stand. We've been trying to understand humanity's success in the Confederation Wars, Dr. Vensera said slowly. Why your species, despite being relative newcomers, turned the tide against the Krenth expansion. We thought it was your technology or tactics. It's not, Addison said, finally understanding her own species in a way her academic studies had never revealed. It's that when everyone else calculates the odds and retreats, we find a gate and hold it. Benjamin squeezed out his mop in the bucket, the mundane sound somehow profound in the silent lab. The Spartans held Thermopylae for 3 days, he said without looking up. They died, but they gave Greece time to unite, time to win. He glanced at the hologram one last time. Sometimes holding the gate means you don't get to see what's on the other side, but someone has to give the others time. As the alien scholars stared at the historical reconstruction with new understanding, Addison realized that humanity's greatest strength had been hiding in plain sight, in the janitor mopping floors, in the security guard checking badges, in every human who understood that some things were worth more than survival. They held the gate. They always had. They always would.